This is a recording of an interview by LBV Television with Ian Josephs, the originator of an amazing new method of learning a foreign language. It's called Home Language International. Ian, learning a foreign language, it's quite a task for anybody. Is there really anything so very different about Home Language International?
Home Language International is quite different. It's the most amazing and fantastic way of learning a language that's ever been invented. I should know because I started it way back in 1979. The difference is that there is no school. The student lives in his own teacher's home. He lives with a qualified teacher on a one-to-one basis, has breakfast, lunch and dinner with the teacher, and private lessons, 15, 20, 25 hours a week, and he has these private lessons and he can't speak his own language after class. This is the difference between Home Language International and any classical system.
Well, I've got lots of questions here from viewers about all of this here, and would you like to perhaps answer some of these?
Yes, I would. Yeah.
Right. Well, most important of all, are the teachers qualified?
This is the most important question, and I can say that every teacher has a university degree or a teacher certificate that's recognized by the government of the country in which the teacher works. And these qualifications are verified by our local organizers who call on the teachers and see that the house is respectable and that the qualifications are genuine.
Very good. How many students live in the teacher's house?
Generally, there's only one student, one teacher. It's one-to-one. The exception can be made, of course, for husbands and wives, brothers and sisters who insist on going together. But even then, we discourage that because they speak to each other. The whole idea is isolation from your own language. After class is finished, you don't go to a school, you can't mix with other students, therefore you learn quickly and retain what you've learned.
One-to-one, Ian, it sounds very expensive. Is that the case?
At first glance, yes. But we can say that they're a lot cheaper than in a language school, for example, because the teachers don't have to leave their own house, so they're willing to do it at a much lower rate. Also, of course, the time that the student needs to spend on Home Language International is probably about a quarter of the time for the same result in the classical language school.
What happens if the student, doesn't like the family that they're put with?
Well, in every area we have a local organizer who contacts the student to see if they're happy, and if for any reason at all they're not happy, which can happen, though it's rare, because we take a lot of trouble to match up the type of student with the type of family. But if it does happen, the local organizer will move the student immediately. We always keep families in reserve, even in the high season, for this. And the student doesn't have to give any embarrassing reasons, just to say he's not altogether happy because the chemistry is wrong or something like that, and he'll be moved to another more suitable family.
Very good. And Ian, are there any age limits for students?
No, there's a terrific range. We have young children who go to, on the whole, to married lady teachers with, who have children of their own. We have elderly people who go to teachers, retired teachers mostly, and we have adolescents. We have, there's no age limit. The teaching families tell us the sort of age that they want the students, and we match the two together.
Well, that's fine, but what about, for example, if you had the president of a bank or an extremely important businessman who's perhaps afraid of reducing his standard of living that he was normally used to? Would this be a difficulty?
It was right at the beginning, back in 1980, when we started, and because this type of person said, well, I live at a high standard of living, and the teacher doesn't on the whole. So what we found was that some teachers do come from wealthy families or marry into them, and they live at a very high standard. So we have a 5-star program. The teaching's the same, but we guarantee a luxury standard of living with gourmet meals and introductions to people on a high social and professional level. And it costs about double, but even then it works out much less than a luxury hotel, and therefore it works very well.
Very good. A question here from South America. A South American mother, for instance, nervous about sending her daughter to Europe. It's such a long way from home, obviously.
It is indeed, and a mother can feel much more secure with Home Language International than any other system because her daughter is supervised by a qualified teacher, used to supervising young people, and who only has her daughter to look after, not a whole lot of other students, and therefore her daughter is as secure as possibly can be.
Now, supposing you get a difficult student, difficult in the respect that they're vegetarian, for instance, or they have an allergy about cats or tobacco, for example. Can you deal with that?
Providing the student lets us know in advance, and this, of course, is essential, We have families who cater to all these allergies or special requirements. My wife, who was down in the south of France, she managed to place two 70-year-old Danish vegetarians only a week or two ago, and there's no problem.
Very good. You have all the answers then. Now, I understand, Ian, that young boys, for instance, at language schools are notoriously lazy and can sometimes miss classes. Is that a problem for Home Language International?
The great thing about Home Language International, as far as they're concerned, is that when they wake up, they're in class. They can't possibly miss the class because they're there. The teacher is there. They can't make any excuses, and even if they're not very keen on learning, they can't help it.
I see. Would the teacher be able to prepare a program in advance, for examinations, for instance?
Yes, we quite frequently get this sort of a question, and providing we know in advance, the teacher can adapt the program exactly to the requirements of the student, because he's the only student, and this again is a feature which doesn't exist in a language school where there are groups.
Well, we've talked about quite a lot of hard work for the student. What about social activities? If a student particularly wants to play golf or tennis, for instance, or likes the theatre, or would like to just see the local area, is that provided for?
Yes, when we engage the teachers, the local organizer is responsible for detailing all the teachers' hobbies and interests. And we try and match up the student's hobbies and interests with that of the teacher that he's going to visit, so that we find that people with the same interests get on pretty well. If you try and take a 17-year-old rocker and put him with an old lady who likes Beethoven, it won't last 2 minutes, and we don't do that.
Right. And what about the different towns, the different countries?